Hello student. Today topic of lecture urogenital system part 2. Next question. Overview of reproductive system, anatomy of the testis, epididymis, vas deferens, spermatid cord, accessory. Third, anatomy of the ovary, the uterine tube, the uterus, the vagina, the valve. The reproductive system. Most organ systems of the body function almost continuously to maintain the well-being of the individual. The reproductive system appears to slumber until puberty, after which it plays an important role in our adult lives. Also, male and female reproductive organs are quite different. They share a common purpose to produce offspring. In both female and male, the sex organ of genitalia are divided into primary and accessory organs. The primary sex organs or gonads are the testes in males and ovaries in females. Gonads produce the sex cell or gametes, the sperm in males and the ovum, egg in female, that fuse to form a fertilized egg. All other genitalia in both sexes are accessory sex organ, including the internal glands and duct that nourish and gametes and transport them toward the outside of the body, and external genitalia. The male reproductive system. The male genitalia are divided into internal and external male genitalia. The external genitalia are located outside the body in the perineal region. This is penis, urethra, scrotum. The internal genitalia are located in pelvic cavity into scrotum. Male genitalia are treated in medicine by the specialist field of urology. The internal male genitalia include testis, epididymis, vas deferens, ductus deferens, and spermatic cord. Accessory sex glands: prostata gland, seminal gland, glandula vesiculosa, and glandula bulba urethralis, glandula bulba urethralis, paired, and seminal gland paired. The external genitalia include penis, urethra, scrotum. Function of the male genitalia. The internal genitalia are reproductive organs with different functions. First, testis formation of sperm cells of sex hormone testosterone. Epididymis and spermatic duct, storage and transport of sperm cells. Spermatocord, guidance of spermatic duct and vessels or nerves of testis. Accessory sex glands, secretion of ejaculate and lubricant. The external genitalia are sexual organ. The penis is used for sexual intercourse. The scrotum encases testis epididymis, the first section of the vas deferens, vessels, nerves, and duty to storage of the testis outside the body, enable lowering of the surrounding temperature, which is necessary for the formation of sperm and spermatogenesis. Testis is egg-shaped and 4-3 cm in size. Testis is located in the scrotum. The testis has pole superior, extremitus superior, and extremitus inferior. The appendix testis located on the extremitus superioris. It is a rudiment of the cranial and of paramesonephral duct. Rudiment of paramesonephral duct. Borders anterior and posterior. Margo anterior, margo posterior. Surface medial and lateral, fasces medialis, fasces lateralis. It is testis. Extremitus superior, extremitus inferior, margo anterior, margo posterior, and two surface, fasces medialis and fasces lateralis. What do you see? Testis and epididymis. Extremitas superior, extremitas inferior. The testis is surrounded fibrous capsule. Tunica albuginea. Septal extension of the tunica albuginea project inward to divide the testis into 250-300 wedge-shaped compartments called lobules. Each lobule has 1, 2, 4 coiled seminiferous tubula. Its actual sperm factories. Most of convoluted seminiferous tubuli seminiferi contorti are looped like hairpins. Seminiferous tubuli. What do you see? You see testis. This is epididymis. This fibrous capsule. This is lobule. This is septum. Posteriorly, the seminifery tubules of each lobule converge form straight tubuli seminiferi recti that convey sperm into rete testis, a complex network of tiny branching tubes. Rete testis lies in mediastinum testis, a region of dense connective tissue in the posterior part of the testis. From the rete testis, sperm leave the testis through about a dozen efferent ductuli. These ductuli efferens testis that enters the epididymis, a comb-shaped structure that hugs the posterior outer surface of the testis. This is lobule seminiferous, tubulus seminiferous. This is straight tubula. This tubulus seminiferi recti. Rete testis. It is mediastinum testis. This is ductuli deferens testis. Epididymis. Epididymis. The epididymis is a comma-shaped organ that arches over the posterior and lateral side of the testis. The epididymis has appendix epididymis, paradidymis, It's the rudiments of the mesonephral duct. Mesonephral duct. It's secured by superior and inferior ligamentum epididymis superior, and ligamentum epididymis inferioris. The epididymis is divided into the head, caput, body, corpus, and tail, cauda. It is the epididymis: head, caput, corpus, cauda. Caput, corpus, cauda. The epididymis. The head of the epididymis contains the efferent ductulus, which empty into the duct of epididymis, a highly cold duct and that complete the head and form all the body and tail of this organ. Caput, body, cauda. Epididymis. Vas deferens, ductus deferens, is 35 centimeter long and 3 millimeter thick, and runs with, what do you see? Vas deferens. What do you see? Ductus deferens. You see what ductus deferens? Ductus deferens. With scrotal, funicular, inguinal, and pelvic section, and the inguinal canal. Scrotal, funicular, inguinal, and pelvic section. In the pelvic, it crosses over the ureter before it's attached to the dorsal side of urinary bladder. It is dorsal side of urinary bladder. There is expand ampulla ductus deferens, and together with the efferent duct, seminal glands connects to the ductus ejaculatorius, which finally flow into the pars prostatica. This ductus deferens. This is spermatic cord. Ductus deferens. This is ampulla ductus deferens. This is ductus ejaculatorius. This is pars prostatica. In the spermatic cord, Ductus deferens can clearly be felt due to strong muscle wall. The spermatic cord, funiculus spermaticus, contain the duct deferens and the testicular vessels and nerves. Spermatic cord. The inferior part of the spermatic cord lies in scrotum, and its superior part runs through the inguinal canal and obliquely oriented trough in the anterior abdominal wall. The spermatic cord enters into pelvic cavity. You see inguinal canal. It is superficial inguinal ring. It is deep inguinal ring. You see a genital organ of male. This is prostate gland. It is urinary bladder. This is urethra. This is a seminal gland. This is a spinas. And you see ductus deferens. This is spermatic cord. It is epididymis. This is testis. This is spinas. The covering of the spermatic cord are connected to the abdominal wall. Also four multiply lies and scrotum. Divided. Scrotum skin, cutis, scrotum skin. Next, tunica dartus, subcutis of scrotum with smooth musculature, smooth muscles. Fascia spermatica externa. Continuation of superficial abdominal fascia abdominis superficial. Musculus cremaster with fascia cremasterica. Fascia spermatica interna. Continuation of fascia transversalis. Tunica vaginalis testis include lamina parietalis, lamina visceralis, lamina pariestalis. Together form tunica vaginalis testis. You see into tunica located testis. You see fascia cremasterica and musculus cremaster. This is fascia cremasterica externa. Fascia spermatica externa. Musculus cremaster. This is plexus pampiniformis and ductus deferens. Ductus deferens. Epididymis. You see annulus inguinalis superficialis. Annulus inguinalis. This is canalis inguinalis. Canalis you see annulus inguinalis. This is you see canalis inguinalis. The content of spermatic cord consists of the vas deferens and deferens vessels and nerves. Vas deferens, ductus deferens with arteria ductus deferens, and arteria testicularis and venosus. Arteria testicularis, nervus genitofemoralis, lymph vessels, vasa lymphatica, and autonomic nerve fibers, plexus testicularis. Plexus testicularis. Together form spermatic cord. Spermatic cord. Do you see? Testis, epididymis. This is opened spermatic cord. What you see venosus plexus, ductus deferens, and veins, and other. Glandula vesiculosa. Glandula vesiculosa. What you see? Glandula vesiculosa. The paired gland rests on the dorsal side of the urinary bladder. What you see? Urinary bladder. You see glandula vesiculosa. The seminal glands are elongated, oval glands. Its different duct combines with a vas deferens to the ductus ejaculatorius and ends in pars prostaticus. Of the urethra of colliculus seminalis, its secretion form 58% of ejaculate. You see glandula vesiculosa. Glandula vesiculosa, ductus deferens form canal ejaculatoris. Ejaculatoris. A prostate gland, prostate gland, glandula prostate, prostata. The unpaired gland is located below the fundus of bladder. What fundus bladder. A prostate has superior base and inferior apex, as well as anterior and posterior surface. Surface facies anterior, and the facies posterior. It's divided into right lobe, lobus prostata dexter, this is lobus dexter, and lobus sinister, which are separated by flat groove, and also divided into lobus medius. Internally, the prostate is traversed by the urethra, pars prostatica, into which it's 30-50 individual glands, each issue secretion via their own efferent duct on both sides of colliculus seminalis. It's form 15-13% of liquid volume of ejaculate. Internally, the prostate is divided into different zones, which are of the highest clinical relevance. Central zone, at the internal zone. Wedge-shaped segment between ductus ejaculatory up to its confluence and then urethra. Peripheral zone surrounds the inner zone on the dorsal side like a mantle. Periurethral zone peripheral zone. This is periurethral zone. Narrow strip of tissue immediately around the proximal urethra. Transition zone. Both sides lateral of the periurethral zone. Prostate is divided: central zone, peripheral zone, periurethral zone, and transition zone. What do you see? Transition zone. Glandula bulba urethralis. What do you see? Glandula bulba urethralis are pear-sized glands situated inferior to the prostate. Embedded into perineal muscle are bulbourethral gland on both sides. The individual glands have diameter of approximately 1 centimeter and flow on both sides with a 3 centimeter long efferent duct proximally into pars spongiosa and urethra. The mucus of glands neutralizes of acid urina, and in the urethra they lubricate the urethra to smooth the passage of semen during ejaculation. What do you see? Glandula bulba urethralis. Glandula bulba urethralis. the penis, the male organ of sexual intercourse, delivers sperm into female reproductive tract. The penis consists of an attached root, radix penis, and three shafts or body, corpus penis, and in enlarged up called glans penis. The skin of the penis is loose and extends distally around the glans to form a cuff called the prepuce or foreskin. Internally, the penis contains the spongy urethra, and three cylindrical body: corpus cavernosus, dextra and sinistra, corpus spongiosus penis. Each of three erectile bodies is a thick tube covered by a sheet of the dense connective tissue, transverse connective tissue, and filled with network of partition that consist of smooth muscle and connective tissue. Corpus cavernosus 2 and corpus spongiosum, cavernosum spongiosum. Midventral erectile body surrounding the spongy urethra. The corpus spongiosus is enlarged distally where is formed glans penis, and proximally where it forms a part of root called bulb of penis, bulbus penis. The bulb is secured to the urogenital diaphragm and is covered externally by the sheet-like bulbus spongiosus muscle. The pied dorsal erectile, the corpora cavernosa, make up most of the mass of the penis. This proximal end in the root, the crura of the penis. Each crus anchored to the pubic arch of the bony pelvis and is covered by ischiocavernosus muscle. Female genital. In the female sex organ, distinction is made between external genital outside the pelvis in the perineal region and internal genitalia within the pelvic cavity. The specialist field of gynecology also focused on this both conservative and chirurgical treatment of female genitalia. The internal genitalia of female include vagina, uterus, fallopian tube, ovary, ovary. The external genitalia of the female include mons pubis, labia majora pudenda, labia minora pudenda, clitoris, vestibula of vagina, greater vestibular gland. Function of the female genital. Female internal genital are both reproductive as well as a sexual organ. Ovaries, formation of oocyte and sex hormones, fallopian tubes, uptake of ovum and the site of fertilization, uterus, development of the child, vagina, cohabitation organ and birth canal. The external genitalia are the sexual organ and serve the purpose of intercourse. What you see, genital, female genital. Ovary, you see ovary. Ovary, the paired almond-shaped ovaries located on lateral sides of the uterus. It's covered by peritoneum and lie in an intraperitoneal position in the cavity pelvis. In female of child-bearing age, the ovary is 4 to 3 centimeters large. Distinction is made between superior pole extremitas tubaria and inferior pole extremitas uterina. The ovary has medial and lateral surface, fasces medialis, fasces lateralis, secured to the anterior border, peritoneal duplication mesovarium, margo mesovaricus, while the posterior border remains free, margo libera. The vessels and nerves enter the exit at the hilum of the ovary. This is, you see, ovarium, ovary. Extremitas uterina, extremitas, you see, extremitas tubaria, extremitas tubaria. This is ovary. What you see, this is ovary. This is libera, margo libera. This is, you see, margo libera. This is what you see, margo libera, mesovarium. The ovary is surrounded by the fibrous capsule called the tunica albugineus. The tunica albugineus is covered by simple cuboidal epithelium called the geminal epithelium. The main substance of the ovary is divided into outer cortex and inner medulla. The ovarian cortex houses developing gameta, which are called oocyte. What do you see? Oocyte, oocyte, located into follicula. All oocytes occur within sac-like multicellular structure called folliculus, which enlarged substantially is the matter. In human females, generally one or occasionally two follicles each month. Thus only one or two oocytes develop each month. Each month. What do you see? Each month. The part of the cortex between the follicles is a cell-rich connective tissue. Deep ovarian medulla is a loose connective tissue containing largest blood vessels, nerves and lymphatic vessels of the ovary. These vessels enter the ovary through the hilum, horizontal slit in the anterior ovarian surface where the mesovarium attaches. What do you see? This ovary. This is a cortex, this is medulla. Cortex, medulla. This is tissue, connective tissue. This is primary folliculus and geminal epithelium. This is oocyte, surround granulosa cells and other. This is, you see, developing corpus luteum. This is X of female. The ovary is secured by two suspensory ligaments. Ligamentum ovary proprium. Ligamentum ovary proprium. Is attached to the extremitas uterina and connects the ovary and uterus. Next, ligamentum suspensorum ovary. Clinically, ligamentum infundibula pelvicum. Connect the ovary from extremitas tubaria outward with lateral pelvic wall. It guides the arteria and vena ovarica. Ligamentum ovary propria and ligamentum suspensorum ovary. Fallopian tube, tuba uterina, connects the ovary and uterus. It is 13 centimeters long and the various sections include infundibulum, ampulla tuba uterina, isthmus and intramural section, pars uterina. Infundibulum tuba has an aperture to the abdominal cavity, ostium abdominae tuba uterina, and fringe-like processes, fimbria, tubula, uterina, for received the ovum during ovulation, infundibule. Ampulla runs in the arch shape around ovary. Isthmus, constriction at the passageways to the uterus. Intramural section, pars uterina, runs into the uterus. You see ostium uterinum. What do you see? Fallopian tubes. This is fimbria, infundibulum, ampulla, and isthmus. This is, you see, uterina. Uterus lies in the pelvic cavity, anterior to the rectum, and posterior superior to the bladder. This is uterus. It's hollow, thick-walled organ whose functions are to receive, retain, and nourish fertilized egg throughout pregnancy. The uterus is 8 cm long, 5 cm wide, and 2-3 cm thick. It has variable weight of between 30–120, which reaches up to 1 kilogram in pregnancy and greatly diminishes with age. The uterus is divided into body. This is fundus, isthmus, and neck. The inferior tip of cervix projects into vagina. The cervix forms a tough fibrous ring and keeps the uterus closed and the fetus within it during pregnancy. This is, you see, uterus, vagina. You see fundus, vesicouterina pouch. This is uses cervix of uterus. This is vaginal portion of cervix and vagina. This is vagina and crus of clitoris, and you see hymen and vaginal orifice, and you see labium minus. The uterus has the anterior surface, fasces anterior and anterior or vesicalis, which point to the urinary bladder, and posterior surface, fasces posterior or intestinalis, which has contact the rectum. This is contact rectum. The anterior of peritoneal cavity, think into depths between this as excavatio vesicouterina, and posteriorly as excavatio recto uterina. You see excavatio recto uterina, and you see excavatio recto vesicouterina, vesico recto uterina, recto uterina. The normal position of the uterus is curved forward toward the vagina, anteversio, and the body is bent backward toward the cervix, anteflexio. Это anteversio, anteflexio. This position has a protective purpose and prevents the uterus from being evicted out of the vagina in the case of an increase in intra-abdominal pressure. The space inside the uterus is divided into cavities uteri in the body of the uterus and into the cervical canal, canalis cervicis uteri in the cervix. The cervix runs with its posterior section via of external uterine orifice, ostium uteri, into the vagina, portio vaginalis cervicis. Then superior section, which begins in the isthmus with the internal uterine orifice, ostium anatomicum uteri internum, portio supravaginalis cervicis. The external uterine orifice is bounded by anterior and posterior lips, labium anteriorus and labium posteriorus. The wall of the uterus is composed of the three basis layers: in an outer peritoneal lining on the uterus, middle myometrium, smooth muscles of the uterus, and inner endometrium, mucosal membrane of the uterus. You see, this is ovary, infundibulum of uterine tube, uterine tube. What do you see? Uterine tube. And you see mucous membrane. You see anterior fornix, vagina. What you see, vagina. This is labium. Suspensory ligament of the uterine. The two sections of the uterus have various suspensory ligaments which have clinical relevance in gynecological operation. You see corpus uteri, ligamentum latum uteri, ligamentum latum uteri, or mesometrium, form forms together with the peritoneal duplicaturus of the adnexa, это mesosalpinx and mesovarium, an anteriorly positioned fold in the lesser pelvis which cover the body of uterus, fallopian tube and ovary thus lies and intraperitoneally. This is your ligamentum latum uteri. This is mesosalpinx, mesovarium, and ligamentum transversum cervicis, and ligamentum ovary proprium, what do you see, and ligamentum latum uteri, ligamentum latum uteri. Ligamentum teres uteri, ligamentum teres uteri. This is latum, right? It is ligamentum teres uteri, connective tissue cord which runs from the angle of uterine tubes anteriorly to the lateral pelvic wall and through the inguinal canal to the labia majora, where is inserted into the skin and adipose tissue. Its purpose is to stabilize position of the uterus, located in inguinal canal. Cervix uteri, ligamentum cardinale, ligamentum transversus cervicis, ligamentum transversus cervicis. What you see? Uterus, uterus tuba uterina. This is vesica urinaria. This is rectum, and next ligamentum. It is ligamentum transversus cervicis. What do you see? This is ligamentum rectum uterinum and ligamentum teres uteri. Ligamentum teres uteri. Ligamentum puba vesicale. Puba vesicale. What do you see? This is, you see, tuba uterina. Tuba uterina. This is, you see, ligamentum of cervix uteri. Next, vagina. Vagina is the hollow muscular organ with a length 8 to 10 centimeters and lies in subperitoneal position. The vagina lies inferior to the uterus, anterior to the rectum, and posterior to the urethra and bladder. Vagina has anterior and posterior walls, pares anterior and pares posterior, because the uterus is tipped toward anteversion. The posterior wall is longer than anterior. This is anterior wall, and posterior wall is longer than the anterior wall, and the posterior vagina is higher than the anterior section. The anterior section. This is vagina. You see vagina. This is uterus. This is, you see, cervix uteri. Caudally, the vagina, what you see vagina, opens dorsal to the urethra into the vestibula of the vagina, vestibulum vagina, which is counted among the external genitalia before the first occurrence of sexual intercourse. This connection is closed by the remnant of the hymen. Valve. The mons pubis, which is covered by pubic hair and puberty, runs down into the labia majora pudenda, which unite ventrally and dorsally. It is commissura labiorum anterior and posterior. The approximately 3 centimeter long cavernous bodies of the vestibula and embedded on both sides into the labilla majora, bulbus vestibuli, bulbus vestibula, and behind these into vestibular glands, glandula vestibula majoris and minoris. Clinical term Bartolini glands. In men, Comper's gland. Thank you for attention. Goodbye, student. Sorry for the technical problem.